More than 12 years later, governments are still spending millions of dollars searching for a plane that vanished in less than an hour. Not because they have to. Nobody is legally required to keep looking. There is no international law requiring a country to spend another decade hunting wreckage at the bottom of the Indian Ocean. They're doing it because the alternative is admitting they have no idea what happened to 239 people. And that, it turns out, is something governments find very difficult to accept. On the 8th of March 2014, Malaysia Airlines Flight 370 pushed back from the gate at Kuala Lumpur International Airport and began what should have been a routine overnight journey to Beijing. The weather was clear, no storms, no mechanical alerts, no reason for concern. 227 passengers, 12 crew, a Boeing 777 that had logged millions of miles without incident. The kind of flight that's so ordinary nobody would remember it. The last words from the cockpit were spoken by Captain Zahari Ahmad Shah, an experienced pilot with more than 18,000 hours of flight time. His final transmission to air traffic control was brief, professional, exactly what controllers expected to hear. "Good night, Malaysian 370. 2 minutes later, the aircraft disappeared from civilian radar. No distress call, no mayday, no mechanical alert, no indication anything was wrong. Just silence. The assumption, immediately, was that something catastrophic had happened. A sudden failure, a structural event, something fast and final that left no time to transmit. Search and rescue aircraft were sent toward the plane's last known position, northeast of Malaysia, along the route to Beijing. Ships were diverted. The standard protocol unfolded the way it always does, except nothing about what followed was standard, because while civilian radar had lost the aircraft, military radar had not. Radar data that would take days to surface publicly showed something investigators hadn't anticipated. The aircraft hadn't simply vanished, it had turned around. A deliberate, wide arc that brought it back across the Malaysian peninsula, northwest over the Strait of Malacca, then out into open ocean in the opposite direction from Beijing. Somebody had changed course. The transponder, the signal that tells controllers which aircraft they're tracking, had stopped transmitting. But the aircraft itself was still flying, still visible as an unidentified contact on military screens. Still airborne, moving with purpose, while rescue teams searched hundreds of kilometers in the wrong direction. This is the first moment when the MH370 investigation stopped being a tragedy and became something stranger. A transponder can fail. Catastrophic failures happen. But a plane that silently reverses course, disables its identification signal, and continues flying for hours in the wrong direction is not the signature of a mechanical accident. It's the signature of a decision. What investigators found next made that harder to argue against. The aircraft had continued communicating after the transponder went silent, not with radar, not with air traffic control, with a satellite. Every hour, a small automated signal passed between the aircraft's systems and an Inmarsat satellite overhead. Not a message, not a distress call, just an electronic handshake, a technical confirmation that the aircraft was still powered and still flying. 7 of those handshakes were recorded after MH370 disappeared from civilian screens. 7 hours of flight that nobody witnessed. 7 hours that took the aircraft somewhere, in some direction, far from where the world was looking. Engineers at Inmarsat worked backward from the satellite data and produced 2 possible corridors. A northern arc stretching towards Central Asia, a southern arc extending deep into the Indian Ocean, towards some of the most remote and hostile ocean on Earth. Investigators ruled out the north. Radar from neighboring countries showed no unidentified aircraft crossing their airspace. The south became the focus. And the search that followed became the largest aviation search in recorded history. Malaysia, Australia, China, the United States. Aircraft, ships, submarines, sonar arrays, deep-sea autonomous vehicles. Hundreds of thousands of square kilometers of ocean floor mapped for the first time. A search area so remote that supply ships took days to reach it, conditions so hostile that equipment regularly failed, costs that eventually reached hundreds of millions of dollars. Then in early April 2014, search teams detected something, acoustic signals, pulsing at the same frequency used by aviation black box locators. The signals were faint, the ocean was deep, but the timing, the frequency, the location all pointed in the same direction. Teams believed they had found the black boxes. Robotic submarines descended. Sonar swept the area for days. Nothing was there. The signals were never explained. Whether they came from another source entirely, or whether the equipment was simply malfunctioning under extreme pressure, nobody conclusively determined. It remains one of the most painful moments in the investigation, a moment of near certainty that dissolved into nothing. The months that followed produced no debris, no signal, no answer. Until July 2015, when a beach cleaner on the French island of Réunion, thousands of kilometers from the search zone, noticed a piece of debris tangled in seaweed near the shore. A fragment of wing structure, roughly 2 meters long, barnacled and ocean-worn. It was identified as a flaperon, a specific movable surface from a Boeing 777 wing. Serial numbers confirmed it. The piece belonged to MH370. Over the following months, additional debris appeared. A coastline in Tanzania, a beach in Mozambique. Fragments recovered off Mauritius and South Africa. The drift patterns pointed back to the southern Indian Ocean. The aircraft had almost certainly entered the water somewhere in that remote stretch of ocean, but not exactly where. The search had its first confirmed answer, and it still wasn't enough. Throughout the investigation, one figure drew more scrutiny than any other. Captain Zahari Ahmad Shah was experienced, respected, and by most accounts, an unlikely candidate for anything suspicious. But investigators found flight simulator data on his home computer that showed routes over the southern Indian Ocean. Whether those routes were connected to MH370 or simply normal training exercises, official investigations never resolved. The report from the final Malaysian safety investigation, released in 2018, concluded only that the aircraft had deviated from its planned route and that somebody had likely changed its course manually. It could not determine who, it could not determine why. That is the official conclusion. After 4 years of investigation, involving multiple governments, thousands of personnel, and hundreds of millions of dollars, they don't know. The theories that have filled that space are numerous, and most of them fail under scrutiny. Pilot action remains the most discussed, supported by the course change, the transponder, the simulator data, and the prolonged flight, but undermined by the absence of any definitive proof or motive. Hijacking is possible but produced no demands, no claims of responsibility, no supporting evidence. Mechanical failure struggles to explain a 7-hour flight after communication was lost. Fire or hypoxia could explain an incapacitated crew, but not a deliberate course reversal. The wilder theories, secret military operations, shoot-downs, government cover-ups, fall apart the moment evidence is applied to them. None of the explanations close every gap, and the gaps are significant, which brings us to why, in 2026, a private company called Ocean Infinity is still out there, still mapping the southern Indian Ocean with autonomous underwater vehicles and AI-assisted sonar, operating under an agreement that pays them $70 million only if they actually find the wreckage. Not for searching, for finding. The remaining search area is roughly 7,000 square kilometers. The technology deployed now didn't exist in 2014. Ocean Infinity can cover more ground, dive deeper, and process data faster. Their agreement with Malaysia runs through June 2027. The reason they're still looking isn't bureaucracy. Everyone involved, the engineers, the investigators, the governments, believes the answer is still down there, waiting to be found. The black boxes, if they survived, the fuselage, the evidence that would finally close a question open for more than a decade. 239 people boarded that aircraft. Their families have spent 12 years without a final location, without a complete explanation, without the one piece of information that every aviation investigation is supposed to produce. What happened? The ocean floor in the southern Indian Ocean is nearly 4 kilometers deep in places, cold, dark, almost completely unexplored before 2014. Somewhere down there, almost certainly, the answer exists. The data recorders, the wreckage, the physical evidence that would tell investigators, within hours of being recovered, exactly what occurred in the cockpit of MH370 in the early hours of March 8, 2014. Governments aren't still searching because they have nothing better to do with the money. They're still searching because somewhere, at the bottom of one of the most remote oceans on Earth, is a question that has never been answered. And the idea it might never be answered is something nobody involved is prepared to accept.